Okay, so the thing glitched out, but it was at 26 minutes. So we're just gonna keep finishing on this one, and we'll send you both. But we were all just staring at it, and you'll probably see at the end of the last one. But we were all just like, it was just frozen.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I would not want to watch this because whenever one of us is talking, two of us are just blankly staring into the camera.
Okay, keep going though.
Okay. Anyways, what was I saying?
Journalism.
Oh yeah. And Pete actually talks about journalism more than once, and even though he respected why Della Robbia was there and like the type of journalism she was doing, which is the correct way of doing it, is to just gather information. He doesn't really respect the journalists, like specifically, I can't remember her name. I think it was Mary or something. The one Tina, yeah, the interviewer that interviewed Della Robbia. And like, even though Della Robbia was like, okay, I don't know this much about this, you should wait till Ava gets back, or Dr. Byron, or anything like that. Tina was very much insistent on Della Robbia talking about it because she knew that she could get more dramatic information out of Della Robbia because she knew that she didn't know that much to get down to the specifics, just the general broad bad bits, because all Della Robbia knew is that the reason why the butterflies were there was a really bad thing, and that's it. She didn't know the specifics about the migration patterns, about how they navigated, about anything like that. She didn't know any specifics, so Tina targeted that, and Pete kind of goes into a rant about that for like 2 pages.
Talk about how Ovid freaked out.
Oh yeah, Ovid's little freak out, crash out at the journalist who was like, "Oh, how's this gonna happen?" He just straight up drops everything and just goes full on negative. But outside of that, in a good aspect, I think the book really reflects how well storytelling can pass along information. Because we're like. Right now, we learned all this crap, even if we already knew a good amount of it. Not actually crap, but you know what I mean. We learned most of this by reading a book and reading about a story of a woman who grew a lot intellectually, mentally, emotionally, physically. And we've talked a lot just this semester about how it's way easier to get people to learn by telling stories rather than just putting a graph on a presentation slide in front. I think a really good example of that would be when Della Robbia is interviewing Dr. Byron, she mentions the Book of Job.
Wasn't that when he was interviewing her for the job?
Oh yeah.
Is that? Am I right in saying that? Because I think that's what I remember when she said Book of Job. Because like his family gets killed, right?
Oh yeah. But either way, she mentions a biblical story, and it really showed that that's how she was understanding it. She was taking her previous knowledge about something that related to what Dr. Byron had told her, and just related it to the Bible, and that's like how Hester kind of started learning. That's how she kind of broke through on Cub, and a minute passed, so I should stop talking.
You're good.
But yeah, that's all I get.
Well, I'll kind of pick up on that. But basically, like, I'll start with the religious and spiritual stuff. I think that the book did a really good job of like depicting how they all kind of felt about their religion, because like it wasn't a secret. Were they Christian?
Yeah.
They were Christians. They went to church.
Specified denomination.
Okay, but yeah, so they were religious. They went to church. You know, they believed in that, and then obviously we learned that Bobby is Hester's son, so that's why she puts him on such a pedestal. But Hester seems like a very much, I don't like the term God-fearing, but that's the one I'll use. She seems like a very God-fearing woman. Like, this is kind of how she structures her life, and that's like their deep main belief system. And I think that like all of the references that Della Robbia even puts into the book, like we can tell that like Cobb and Hester, like they've been going to church probably for their whole lives. Like this is something that they strongly believe in. Like Cobb has always believed in this, always, been a part of this. And like Della Robbia is kind of just like there almost. Like, she talks about her church outfits being like almost scandalous, and she talks about, her and Dovey making those jokes and her going and sitting in the cafe and like all of these things that would like insinuate that this wasn't something that she super heavily believed in. Like, she participated for the family, but this wasn't like her main belief system. But it's funny to me how like Cub will bring up something about like religion or about the Bible or about like, well, this says this, but Della Robbie is the one that really has like the references about like Noah and the Ark, and then how Ovid is like, well, inbreeding, they wouldn't have lived, and then how she brings up Job, like the book of Job and the story, and then she brings up something else. I don't know. But there's like a couple like biblical references in the book, but that are brought up strictly by Della Robbia, and they're explained in Della Robbia's like perspective in her mind. So it's like she knows these things, she's grasping onto these things, and I think it's just like another testament to like her knowledge, her compassion, and her understanding, because these aren't things that she is like 100% like, yes, this is what I, not like Hester, not like not like Bear, like she's not like, yes, like this is it for me, but oh my goodness, sorry, but like she brings these things up, so it's just like that realm of knowledge that she has that I think is just like a testament again to like the themes of the novel, where like she has all these options, she has all these things in her life, but she still feels stuck anyways, and like she knows all these things, she can bring them up, but it's still not her main thing anyways. And then she gets into like the scientific stuff with Dr. Byron, like with Ovid, and all of a sudden that just becomes like her wealth of like knowledge, and she compares things, like she'll go scientific and then religious, and she'll like compare them and talk about Dr. Byron with them, and he'll be like, well, scientifically this is why that's not that, and then she'll be like, well, religiously, like this is how things are. And I think that's also just another really interesting topic, how she goes so back and forth in like her realms of knowledge. And I know that was one of the things that we talked about, was like knowledge that was like known and like learned, or lived and then learned. And I think she has a really good mix of both. Like through her experience with her children, like she's been a homemaker for the past, however old Preston is, 8 years old? Like
I think about, he's about
around
8, 10.
there, yeah. So
Like,
right. So like she's just been a homemaker for all of this time, and then now she's getting into where like, okay, I know this about these butterflies. Like I know about lipids. I know how to weigh them and freeze them, and I know how to tell males from females. Like all of these different things that she now knows. So she has that really big sense of lived and learned. So I think that's also when she starts to understand Hester more, because obviously Hester had to be taught like about religion. Like that wasn't something that she just knew. So like Hester like learned religion, like she obviously lived through it, but like those were things that were taught to her. And like with the knowing the flowers, and like the how to like be a vet for like the sheep because it was getting too expensive. Like she lived through those things. Like obviously she learned through her veterinary books about the sheep, but like when she got into the moment, like she didn't know what was gonna happen. It could have been awful, it could have been good, like great, but she lived through that, and then she lived through like learning where the flowers are. So those like, I think that's when Della Robbia really starts to understand Hester, is when she starts to get like both sides of that knowledge in her brain, and then she gets to the point where she's like, oh, like this is why, and like just kind of all of the things start to come together. I feel like, and those things start coming together when she gets in the lab with like Dr. Byron and Pete, and when she's up on the mountain, and like when she's piecing all these things together. Like I don't just have to be one thing. I can be really whatever I want to be, but this opportunity to get into science was placed in front of her. So she's like, okay, like let me try and be some kind of scientist. Like let me work in this lab. Let me do my thing. So I think that like when she starts to like work in the lab and kind of like piece things together, that's when she really finally starts to be like unstuck. It's yawning.
And I think to build on like more of that spirituality and religious thing, like I think she's also, I don't want to say picking and choosing, but I'm going to use that word, stealing leaf right out of your book, Claire. But she, with her life experience, she's like identifying parts of her religion that like she just can't grasp and like just can't have that in her reality, because she knows with whatever situation she's being faced, like something's not true or something doesn't line up. So yeah, using her life experience as a mother and as farmer and coming from like a more farm family, how things can't just happen out of nowhere. There has to be reason behind it. Is like another reason why she's more apt to like being open to the climate change like conversations, because though she like started frequenting church more, like even at like towards like what chapter 2 or 3 or something, I don't know, when she like actually went into the church rather than just the cafe, like she started exploring it more. She wanted an explanation for it, and her first thought was church. So it was like she's not open to it, but she has her own way of like picking and choosing what she can or can't believe in. Whereas Hester's more believing it more, which is why she's more closed off to that climate change conversation, which kind of makes Bellarobia's "fuck you" at the end more powerful. And yeah, and then with the like ties between her and Hester, like that connection growing closer, I think throughout the book was like really important to not only like Delrobi and Hester themselves, but like to the whole family. So it felt less divided because it was kind of the two mothers at like the heads of the family coming together and like actually being able to embrace one another was like a lot easier for the family to like handle rather than just having straight divide where so having Delrobi and Hester be able to tolerate each other, having Hester being able to open up to Delrobi more about Bobby and like her family life and how she feels stuck and sees herself in Delrobia. Having that was just very powerful for Hester to be able to feel like she can be open with Delrobia because they grew connections through the sheep and how Delrobia was helping out with that and how she started adventuring the church more and that kind of thing. They were able to just grow closer. This is really hard for this long. Jesus.
We got 2 more rounds.
And then having the like family grow closer together, let the like fight for climate change or against climate change, like be able to be more open at least within their family, and then kind of growing that outside of their like just circle to the town, like they were able to. Delrobia herself was able to like show how powerful climate change can be to the town itself and how the tomato fields going sour and the flooding and the trees and the butterflies, like it's not just a cause from God, it's a cause from nature and what humans do to nature. So having that kind of, I think, opened people's eyes as to like their actions themselves to nature and how that affects things, and how with Ovid's, as you eloquently put it, crash out on in the media.
Heck yeah.
Was like that made it even stronger of an argument because like the scientist was like, y'all are fucking shit up. Please don't.
Please don't.
Please don't. I'm begging you.
It was like that kind of made people see like, oh, this is a thing. It's not just God. It's more than that. Yeah.
Alright, so to go a little bit further on like that last thing you said about how it's not just God, that like brought back to my mind like when Cub and Delrobi were having another one of their arguments about the logging, and Delrobi brings up the butterflies again and is like, can't do this, it'll mess with them, and she starts talking about climate change, and then Cub says like the skies are the Lord's domain, and like I said in the private discussion with Elizabeth, it kind of like that quote kind of shot out of the page for me because I'm that I'm that woke dude in the family. I'm that woke dude in the family that is always like, all right, guys, let's take this a bit more seriously when on topics like that.
Yeah.
And like my grand aunts specifically, I heard that a lot from them. Like whenever I would like make a joke about climate change, they'd be like, it's up to God, we'll be fine. And that just like really like made me share Del Robbio's annoyance and just straight up frustration, because it's super hard to get through to someone with scientific facts who is so hell bent on being just like, oh, it's just God, it's fine. And it's just a very shallow way of thinking, in my opinion, and very cowardly, in my opinion, because you're willing to just shove off this issue that you don't understand or don't want to understand by just saying that it's just up to God. And maybe some things are, but climate change is definitely us, and there's no denying that. And just like to keep talking about Cub, like obviously he's not like a great father.
Such a flawed character.
Yeah. But like at the beginning, you kind of like when you hear the book start talking about how he's pretty much just gotten so worn down by his parents and everything else around him that he's just complacent and everything. It kind of makes you think that maybe he's just really depressed as a person, so he's just willing to do whatever. And that probably got a drop of empathy for me, because he's still not a great person or husband or anything, because he's not willing to stand up to his parents when they're making Del Robbio's life miserable, specifically Hester, and he's not willing to fight with Bear when it was Bear's own fault they took out that loan for, what was it, like metallurgy or something,
Some shit.
or whatever it was.
The loan, oh yeah, for that big tractor.
Yeah, and Bear wants to sell property to the logging company to make up that loan back, and that was an issue throughout the entire book, and that would have been avoided if Bear just wasn't an idiot and didn't take out that loan. And Cub's unwillingness to fight that kind of showed me a little more that he's just so complacent in his life, and he's just like, okay, I'll do this. That this made me think that he's not going to change. And while Del Robbio kind of cracks through it a little bit, she would never have been able to fully tear down the wall that he had built up of just ignorance, because she could put a chip in it, but she could never like fully break through, because he was just so complacent in his life of mediocrity. And you kind of see that when he flips so easily. Like when Del Robbio first started getting famous on the local newspaper for the butterflies, at first he was all about it. He wouldn't stop talking about her. He wouldn't stop showing it to everyone. But out of nowhere, he just flips. And then he starts talking about how she keeps running away with the science guys, and how she should just spend her day with them, as she always does. And it just, I think that what happened there was he just remembered that, or maybe started thinking that she would leave him, that she eventually did. And I think if he was more open and more willing to learn, like Del Robbio was, and wasn't so complacent, she would not have ended up leaving him. I think she would have been like, you should do this with me. But because of his really stubborn complacency and ignorance and unwillingness to do really anything different outside of what he does already day to day with the sheep shearing and farming and listening to his parents, and that just was too much for her, and she left, because you can't make someone like that learn. They're already super into the I'm okay like this, and if anything different happens, it's up to the Lord, it's up to whatever, they'll figure it out, I'm perfectly fine. And it kind of bridges back to that climate change belief that everything will stay the same, and that's why it's such a watered down issue right now in terms of modern like politics and issues and stuff like that. It's just that people believe that everything will stay the same, and they won't realize that it's not going to stay the same until their house is absolutely leveled by a wall of water, just like his did.
Yeah.
Like mine almost was.
Yeah, same.
All right, lit. So I think kind of like going. Oh, what was I gonna say? In my head. Like going kind of off of what Danny was saying, just like. Oh my goodness.
It's alright. I'll come back.
Take a second. You got it.
Okay. Going off of what like Danny was saying a little bit before about like Cobb being like, yeah, like, oh, she's gonna leave me, yada yada, and then she did. I think Delarobia like had the notion in her head of leaving for like the entire time. She was just always leaving for the wrong reasons. And like she finally found a good reason, like a very valid reason to leave. But and I don't know if anyone else like remembers this, but there was a section where like Cobb like fully admitted, like not admitted to, but was like talking about how he like slept with Crystal.
I don't remember.
And I
that
was
part.
like,
Ever so much.
I
well,
don't
he's like-
remember that part.
He didn't admit to sleeping with her, but he was like, she's been coming over, yada yada yada, and then he's crying,
Shit, it's George Cooper.
saying I would never cheat on you, whatever. And I'm just like, okay. So I think that they both had like their flaws, but like Daniel, you were saying, like Cub is just, I genuinely just put it as immature. And like we were talking about this in classes, like he was doing the TikTok doom scrolling, but with his TV. Like he just had no empathy, no compassion, no like desire to take care of his children. Like he wanted them to be just like he was, and he wanted them to be like little farm kids. He wanted them to be whatever.
Oh yeah, because like
And-
he like went during an argument with Elroy, he was like, "What's wrong with being a redneck?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like every little redneck kid's dreamer. Or they were like, she's like, we're raising hillbillies or something like that. But it's true, and that's like,
Dude.
that's the thought of it. And like, you can tell it's so prevalent or like evident in the book that Delarobia wants Preston to be more than she was. She wants him to have opportunities. She wants to foster his curiosity and not put it down like hers was. And like for Cobb to be having these arguments with her like that and being like, oh well, like what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it, but there is something wrong with you as a father not wanting to like hold on like and push your kids to be the best that they can be. Like there is something wrong with that, and there's not something wrong with being poor. There's not something wrong with, living a little bit of an underclass life, living a different life than say the scientists have or than say some other kids have. But there is something wrong with not like wanting to foster curiosity in your children and wanting to put down your children's beliefs just because you think that they're not going to be happy at the end of the day with how their life is. And honestly, even if Preston wasn't happy with how his life is, that is a motivator for him to pick up and, get somewhere better, go somewhere better, get a job and do something that can help himself, help his family, like pull like out of that rut. Like, and it's just interesting to me how Cub thinks that like it's fine, how everything's fine, how his parents own the house and the land they live on, but it's fine. Like the complacency for their children really gets me, because how are you gonna like let Preston and Cordelia go through what you went through, and then like actively like not know what your wife's doing, what she's thinking, where she's at. Like he would down on her for smoking, he would down on her for this, that, and the other, but he wasn't paying enough attention to see that she was genuinely unhappy, that she would have ran off and cheated on him. Like he didn't even notice.
He doesn't even pay attention.
No, like he pays no attention. So it's like the complacency and just it's kind of just like disgusting to me how he's so just like blah, like straight line, just blah. But and then going back to Dr. Byron, so I really like his character. He also seemed like another like very heavily conflicted person, because he gets in that like, I wouldn't call it bipolar, but like low key almost. Just because he gets like when he started with Delarobia, it was so like,
I think it was calm and angry.
yeah, like he'll be very kind and he'll be very open, and then all the time.
Stop yawning.
I don't know why I keep doing it. Maybe it's because I keep looking at myself doing it. I don't know what's the problem. But
I just keep yawning in the background.
But it's like he would keep up with this like, oh so nice, oh so informative, oh this, oh that. And then she started working in the lab, and I don't know if it was that she started becoming, like seeing her as more of an equal, or seeing that she's understanding it more, but it just became so like back and forth. And you can tell that it like messed with her emotions, because like Delarobia is not, I don't know what the word is. She's not a saint, She would have done it if she could.
She's not pure.
And
She's not a
yeah,
saint.
she's not very divine.
And what it saying,
But
what actually
it was just like you could tell that was like
Okay.
He'll be
a
fine.
problem with
He'll
him.
make it.
Well, okay, if it dies, it's not gonna be good. But you could tell that was like a problem with him because she wanted, like, she had those feelings towards him. So anytime they would have these like conversations and he would smile or be happy, she'd be like, oh, like, I think I'm attracted to him, yada yada yada. And then, well, when she saw him naked, that too didn't help. But and then he'd be like, oh, you know, it'd be very like strictly work, and she'd just kind of be like, oh, and that would like put her off the work almost. And I think that having that perspective as well for her and her relationship with Cub, and like it just kept building up her resentment towards like the world, and so it's a very interesting dynamic. And yeah, I think that like all of the like characters, like none of them really went in like a straight line. Like there was definitely development, but I think like Della Robia's was just like up and like down, and Cubs was kind of just like you know. And so it's just like very interesting how all the characters develop, but how they have such similar traits, and obviously they all like coincide with each other because it would be really boring if they didn't. But it's just those like topics seem so interesting to me, just the way that like Cobb is so complacent, and then Della Robbia is so just like feeling stuck, and then how she gets out of that, but then she starts to feel the same way with like Ovid and like with Dr. Byron that she did with Cub, like that kind of being stuck, kind of not knowing what to do, how to get out of her feelings, and then how it kind of just in the end it's just like, okay, like I have to leave now, and like seeing how she came to that conclusion. Sorry, that was a lot.
Where are we at time-wise?
It's 2:13.
Not that. I was referring to how long was it?
I
20.
think we're at like the 50-minute mark.
What's 26 plus 26?
54.
So we have to talk
Or 52.
8 more minutes.
So,
Gabby,
rock this out. What? Rock this
Do
out.
4 and 4.
Crook is a new word.
Okay.
Going back to Cub's complacency. I hate that man.
Let's go. Talk about Cub.
I hate that man so much. That kid cannot parent. And I'm calling him a kid because he is one. Because why he can't watch his kids for an hour while Della Robbia goes out. Like, doesn't change diapers. Just lays on the couch, doom scrolling on his TV TikTok thing. Like, yeah, he's just brain rotting. And I have such a problem with that because it shows that he doesn't have a willingness to like do anything except work. So it's like, how can Della Robbia even teach him about climate change and the butterflies and all this with him and have him actively engaged if he's not even willing to watch his children for an hour? That, you know, he also had snake in making. So it's just like, he's just a awful guy, and I don't like him. I think I like Bear more than I like Cub, and that's saying enough.
I think you'd like Bear way less if it was actually like down to the intricacies like does with Cub.
Yeah. But I digress. Those poor kids too. I mean, they're just having to grow up in this environment that is not ideal, and I'm sending that to voicemail. So it's just like a problem of the environment that they're in is not open enough to where they can learn, want to learn, and are able to fully process what they're learning. It's just not the right environment, and it's hard to get that through to people outside of that circle in that town. That's so, like, colluded in their minds. I don't know if I'm using that word right, but we're using it.
No, you use it right.
Okay. So, yeah, it's just all messed up, and the book doesn't really have, like, the way that they portray, like, the media and stuff is not the greatest because of how, like, the media in the book, like, approach topics is just not the best way to help actually teach people. It's just a way for them to get headlines and get money, and that's all that the town kind of focus is on is just trying to get money to survive. And
If only the town actually survived instead of being wiped out by giant.
yeah, and who caused that damn flood? The town. I mean,
Well, not the town specifically. They probably are one of the.
the catalyst.
Yeah.
I think my computer's at like 2%, so do you just want to like talk and then finish this up?
Sure. I'm pretty sure we're almost done. Anyways. Pretty sure we're almost at an hour.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, what more is there to talk about? Because I feel like we've covered almost every base. I'm not gonna lie.
I think the significance with the end is like there's a like when she says flame and flood. I think that's such a significance. Like everything in this book genuinely ties together. But I think that like the flame and flood thing goes back to how she saw the butterflies in the beginning as flames. Like she ran from the flames. Those flames stopped her from essentially ruining her life. And then now this flood has came and has kind of ruined that life. It's kind of ruined what she's known and what she's had and everything that they said that like they told the people, they told the town, she told her family like this is coming, like this has happened before, it's gonna happen again, it's probably gonna happen to us. And she made that so explicitly clear, and they did not listen to her. And that's like a like I keep saying testament. That's like the exemplification of like the themes and how like the end. So like she comes to the end, she's watching the butterflies, and they resemble again the flames that she saw, and the flood. You know, it wiped away that old Delarobia. It wiped away that old concept of like, oh, I'm gonna run away. I'm gonna ruin my life. Like all those things, like that flood that wiped that old person away, and she's leaving. Like she's making her way out of the town, getting on a Dodge, and I think that just like it was a really nice, not wrap up, but it was a really nice way to end the story, and a really nice way to like kind of top off Delarobia's character development. Just watch them go, watch that part of her life kind of not disappear, but watch her finally be able to put that behind her and do her thing, like do what she wants to do.
Do what's best for her.
And yeah, not what everybody else is telling her to do. So there, not talking.
Just a little short segment before we actually like stop. The ending kind of like also to me signifies how with climate change, eventually nature is just gonna wipe everything clean, including us. Like we're gonna get wiped off the earth eventually, and over a few thousand, maybe million years, Earth will rebuild itself, and butterflies, every animal that was in danger will come back to normal. It will repair itself, but it does that by wiping us clean, and that's what I think these disasters are. These tornadoes, these floods, these tsunamis, all this is nature just trying to wipe itself clean. And scientifically, it's accurate because storms exist and happen to stabilize the environment around it, and that's why everything feels so calm after a storm. And that's where the phrase comes from, calm after the storm, or calm before the storm, or whatever. But I think the flood just also signifies how eventually we'll be wiped clean, and everything just restarts pretty much.
Well, I think we're done.
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Pressure
Good
Warriors.
job, guys.
Yeah, basically, pretty much. And then, just again, there's the 2 videos. They should have everything.